Hello, I'm Fatima Attarwala, Editor Business and Finance, and with me today is Nasir Jamal, veteran journalist and Bureau Chief Lahore. 2023 has not been an easy year for any of us. It started off with fears of a sovereign default. Before Ramzan, there were stampedes for rations. Many people died in them. It has been a year of historic lows and historic highs, and not in a good way. For example, inflation was at 38% in May, and that is the highest inflation has ever been. The monetary policy rate currently right now is 22%, which is also the highest that it ever has been in Pakistan history. The rupee crashed. It crossed rupees 300. In the open market, it was above rupees 320 before stabilizing. There were many days in which the auto sector had to close down because of suppressed demand and the high interest rates. Exporters had a tough time because so often the letters of credits would not open because of the shortage of dollars. But that was more of a first half of the year, because I think 2023 can be divided into two halves: before the IMF standby agreement and after the IMF standby agreement, when things started stabilizing. So after multiple interest hikes, the MPC has stabilized at 22% with some hope that it would come down in the next year. PSX did marvelously well in the latter half of the year. This month only, in December last year, it crossed 67,000. That in a year in which the stock market's low was 38,000 and it crossed 67,000 in December. Even the last day of the year, it crossed 62,000. It closed at 62,000. So Nasir, my question to you would be, as we enter 2024, what is the biggest challenge we face, and what are the biggest hopes that we have?
Fatma, you have very comprehensively described the situation that we faced during 2023. And I think as we enter 2024, we will have the same challenges to tackle throughout the year. The last year can be, the second half of 2023 was a period of stabilization and under the IMF program, and the caretaker government must be commended for following through the program goals and conditions, and stability or this reduction in volatility in the markets during the last 5 months or 6 months. That was mainly because of administrative measures. That was because of the restrictions, import restrictions that still hold. It wasn't that our economy suddenly changed or started to grow. Last financial year that ended on June 30th, we had to contract the economy. Otherwise, we would have been in a deeper financial troubles. So this stability that we have achieved in last 4-5 months, that is very fragile, and but it is enough for us to build on it during the new year 2024. This year 2024 will also be a year of stabilization, and but there is a big question mark about the new setup that will come into power after the February 8 elections. So mostly predictions are that we will have a coalition government that will be weak and may not be able to take the tough decisions that will be needed to take throughout the year. And I think it's not only during 2024, but we will need another 2 more years to actually stabilize the economy. And immediately, the immediate task before the next government would be to negotiate another medium-term program with the IMF. Because you see, the short-term program that we have now has indeed helped us achieving some stability, no matter how fragile it is. We see that investments are not coming. Neither domestic investors are ready to put their capital, nor we are receiving any foreign direct investment. and some promised investments from the Gulf countries like Saudi Arabia and UAE. They are also not coming in. Of course, I mean Saudi Arabian company Aramco has bought shares in oil marketing company with $100 million, and UAE companies have been leased some berths on Karachi port, but that is, I mean, nothing. We were told that like 2, 3, 4, $5 billion in next 6 months, or those investments are not coming. And I think even the Gulf countries, investors and governments, they are also looking forward to what kind of government we have, and if that government will show the same kind of commitment to IMF stabilization program or not, and how it will be planning to manage the economy going forward. Not only 2024, but I think the next 3 years should be focused on stabilizing the economy rather than growing it. If we, just change the gears now, or in 6 months, or even 7, or even in year, then I think we will again return to the same situation that we had to face in the early part of 2023.
I absolutely agree with you, Nasir. We need to continue to stay in the stabilization period rather than run towards growth, because if we run towards growth, there's going to be a very short-term boom, and the bust part of the cycle will be deeper than before. But as you said, we'll have to go to the IMF again, but that begs the question. The SBA facility that came in 2023 came when you were at the brink of default because we were not committed to the reform process and because there was so much political instability. The last review, on the other hand, was relatively painless because the price hike happens, the gas price hike, the petrol price hike, the electricity price hike. So the next time that we go to the IMF, and we will probably have to go to the IMF, do you think that the government will be able to push through the reform process? And will the IMF be willing to give us a loan relatively easily, or will we have to go through the whole cycle again?
Fatima, I think the next program will be tougher than this one, I think, because we have indeed, we have met the goals set in this ongoing IMF program, but there is a lot of work to be done yet. Energy sector, we have to fix the energy sector, and that will require very tough decisions. We have to privatize SOEs, and that will be very painful. We have to cut down our public sector expenditure. That will be tough. So of course, the inflation will be down because of the high base effect. Inflation will be down. We will be the prices, the price increase will not be as fast or as big as we have seen in 2023 or in the later part of 2022. But still, the year 2024 will not be easy for the people. It will be tough for the people. It will be tough for the businesses. And as long as we don't get enough dollars, as long as we are not able to build our reserves to a comfortable level, and no, I am not talking about 20 billion or 25 billion. We need to build them to at least 35-40 billion dollars, so we can start the growth, could put the country back on the rails of growth. So people are expecting interest rates to come down, and maybe by the end of 2024 we'll have 16% of markup, but that will also be very high rate given the investment appetite in the domestic among the domestic investors. So I think the next IMF program will be tougher, much tougher than the present one. And it should be, I think, because our policymakers, they don't decide, they don't take decisions, they don't take difficult decisions unless they are pushed. And the only force that can push us right now is IMF and our creditors, whether they are bilateral creditors or multilateral creditors.
Absolutely. The entire reform process has been because we were under pressure. If we were not under pressure, the subsidies would have continued, the gas prices would have been low. So inflation might have been low, but at what cost? Besides, we did not have the money to subsidize. So you're absolutely right. We made the hard decisions under pressure. And if we continue with the IMF, so hopefully we'll continue making the hard decisions. But the one thing that I think slightly new that happened in 2023 was the creation of SIFC. Now, whether SIFC will be just another unfulfilled promise or whether it will bring in the huge number of $100 billion, I think that remains to be seen. Do you think there is any validity to their claims?
SIFC, I mean, they are doing good. I mean, good work. Like they are working on agriculture and mining. But of course, I mean, reservations, people have reservations about them, and even IMF and World Bank have expressed their reservations about them. And if I remember it correctly, IMF is concerned that this will create a group of favored investors, and the SIFC was actually created because of pressure from the Gulf countries who wanted policy consistency, who wanted to have one window operation in place. Because when an investor wants to come into Pakistan, they have to need multiple institutions, multiple federal institutions, provincial institutions. Then there is a lot of red tape here. So SIFC was created for them. So to give them some comfort so that they can bring their money here and invest here. But the promise of SIFC bringing like $50 billion or $75 billion, or some are talking about $100 billion. I mean, that I don't think is possible. I mean, even in next 5-10 years, unless we fix our economy, unless we clean up our house, unless we put in place policies which are favorable for investment. And I think this entire exercise should be for every investor, whether local, small, big, foreigner, for everyone. It shouldn't be, SIFC shouldn't focus on investments from a few countries or from a few investors or for a few or into a few sectors. And they should also focus on establishment of industry, export-oriented industry, because our dollar problem will not go away unless we start earning dollars. And there are only two major ways of earning dollars, that is exports and remittances. And the third biggest source of dollars can be FDI. So once our own investors feel comfortable in investing their money, FDI will follow only then. Otherwise, if you expect foreign investors to come in first and then our local investors to follow them, that is not going to happen. It is always that local investors show keenness in investments, and then when foreign investors see, they watch that the local businesses are investing, expanding, and going into new areas, then they follow, then they feel comfortable. And I think the business environment has to be improved for that, and for everybody, for local investment, for foreign investment, for small investment, for large investment, for investment in agriculture, for investment in mining, for investment in IT, textiles, and any sector. Future investment policy should focus pursue, the import substitution and export push simultaneously. Unless we reduce our imports and increase our exports, we are not going anywhere.
Absolutely right, Nasir. If the own businesses do not have confidence in their own country, why would somebody from the outside come and say, yeah, I have confidence, I will invest in you? So it has to start with the local businesses. And again, as you mentioned, if SIFC is focused on one group of countries and one group of sectors, then it will have very limited benefits. So I think if I want to wrap it up, I would say that 2023 ended on a positive note in that we finally entered the much needed stabilization process. But that is not a process for just months. All of 2024 and the next few years, we have to remain in that stabilization process for Pakistan to have long-term growth. Otherwise, the boom bust cycle that we have been stuck into will continue. And the dollars that you mentioned that we need to increase through remittances, through FDI, through exports, there will just remain remittances because more and more people will be leaving the country. And there's just a limit to how much we can receive through remittances. Real growth can only come through exports. It can only come through FDI. It can only come if the reform process continues sustainably in 2024 and the next few years.
Remittances, overseas Pakistanis will not send their money as long as, they see that there is a political turmoil here, as long as they see there is economic turmoil here. So, nobody will send their money to Pakistan unless we have political stability, we have economic stability. So, I think the reform agenda set by us, by IMF or us or whatever, whoever has set that agenda, that has to be followed through in the next year.